This is Voorhees Tiger Vision. I am your host, Madre Allen. We in the building. We got Voorhees Tiger Vision. I'm getting some feedback. I am your host, Madre Allen. We in the building. Hold on 1 second. Some feedback.
That was a lot of static.
I think we're still live, James.
I know.
Had to bring it back, Coach. I was hearing everything on the loop. Are we good?
We're good now. We're good.
Hey, man, that's the toughest thing. You gotta be ready to fix this stuff on the fly, man. You never know what's gonna happen. You gotta be ready to adjust and get busy and pull the skills out on the fly, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you behind it, not me.
Hey, that's not what we want after a big win, Huff. That's not how we want to open the show after we get a dub, man.
It's not. It's not.
We're gonna keep on keeping on. Guys, this is Voorhees Tiger Vision. I'm your host, Madre Allen. We're here with our head coach of the Voorhees Tigers, Coach Cabral Huff, and we get to make another introduction today.
We do. Glad to have my brother, James Williams, as an assistant coach here at Voorhees College. He's only, this is day 2, James?
Day 2, yeah, day 2.
It's going to be a good time. Coach Williams, welcome. Another familiar face added to the coaching staff, another guy that we know that can get the job done, another trusted assistant coach with a high basketball IQ and great relationships with players and coaches around the Southeast. I know you've only been a couple of days, but we'll open up the floor to you, give you an opening statement, and tell us how everything is going for you so far.
Man, Huff put me to work. It's like there's no rest. Very similar to how practices run. There is no downtime, waiting around time. Got in yesterday, 7 a.m. Funny story. You know how you show up on the first day of a job and you think that you're gonna be there early, to impress the new boss that you committed and you're with it. So I left Atlanta Monday or Tuesday morning, probably at like 3:30, 3:40. I was like, I'll get to the gym, 6:45, 6:50, right before, maybe they'll get started at 7. I show up, I look, man, the guys are sweating at 6:45. I was like, man, they already, had already been into a full sweat. So technically I'm late, and I think that's just indicative of everything that Coach Huff represents. Like, practice starts at time on the sheet say 7. He's gonna be there probably an hour or two before. The guys are on the floor at 6:45. Ready to get stretched, and at 7 is kind of when the circle starts. So that right there was kind of not necessarily a rude awakening because I'm used to that. That's me all day. But it's time for the big leagues. And then, we were sitting in the office and he was like, "You got khakis?" I got all my stuff in my car, coming from Mississippi or whatever. And he's like, "You got some khakis?" And he threw me a polo. He's like, "Yo, I need you to, get the starting lineups, make sure the book right." I was like, "Oh, okay." So, you get in, you got to work. So, today we had an off day, and I came in the office to start the scouts for our next 3 opponents. So, even on off days, you got to work. So I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. The Russ College situation was cool. It wasn't nothing with Coach Newton and the staff. It was really the school, man. My goals as a coach weren't in line with what they wanted from the housing department. So I made a decision to leave. Huff, we had already been talking. And, I've been watching the show, kind of watching what he's been doing. We have been communicating behind the scenes. And, I'm here. So I'm excited. I'm excited to work with somebody who I respect, who I revere, who I've coached against. And also he's seen me grow as a coach, and we're going to try to take the program to the next level. I really am going to embrace Be the Change.
For sure. You guys got off to an amazing start. I will say that. We'll get to the scrimmage game that took place late last night. We'll talk about what is planned for the future. But I do want to get into, Huff, a little bit about the lead-in until last night. It was a lot of anticipation. Last week on the show with Coach O, we talked about you guys had just had an amazing practice. And you seem to be really excited about the direction that guys were heading. Let's continue to talk about that because, we can get into the game and the highlights and who made shots, but it's what happens behind the scenes at practice that leads into those big victories. So kind of tell us how the guys were doing leading up into this first test, this scrimmage.
Oh, man, it was to prepare for a game and have 7 practices when you've got 6 returners, 2 guys the previous coach had signed, and then the 7 guys I had signed. Just imagine only having 7 practices to get ready for a game. So you had some adversity as far as how you're going to get those guys to mesh together so quickly. And we've been blessed, man. Like, we've been blessed that we've got some really good guys that were already here, and we brought some really good guys in, and they all fit together. It was like a great puzzle. They like being around each other, and we got after it. They compete. Like if we had one of our recruits, Jacoby Crosby, who's committed to us. His team, part of his team, and his father came to watch us practice on Saturday, and that was the first thing he talked about is how we compete and get after it. But once that practice is over, they're so much like their boys again. But they're gonna make each other better. They're gonna hold each other accountable. Now you got to realize that some of these guys have not been on the court since a year ago, to be honest with you. So when we started practice January 4th, you had guys that maybe were almost 365 days before had a practice. So we got some guys that got banged up. And so we had to kind of adjust. We talked about that practice schedule a couple of shows ago, and we were trying to do 2 a days, and we had to adjust and say, listen, we've got to kind of rev it down a little bit. And instead of going 2 a days, let's go 2 hours, 3 hours, and just give them 1 practice. And our guys benefited from that, to be honest with you. They appreciated the fact that we as coaches weren't so gung-ho and said, we got to do it this way. It's got to be this way. No, let's rep it down this way. We got Sunday off, to rest and ice bath and do all those things. And just like James talked about today, we gave those guys off. We played at 8 o'clock last night. So to go from getting them up again in the morning as well as them having classes probably wouldn't have been beneficial with us not having to play another game until Tuesday. So, but really love our guys, man, and how they compete and how they get after it, and how we, they bought into what we're trying to do. And I know James is only there for our shoot around from 7 to 8, but he can kind of give you a little bit more tidbits on it, on what his thoughts were.
Yeah. So the thing that really impressed me was what happened from after he dismissed them at 8 to about 5, 6 o'clock. Shoot around was for 4. But before then, you had guys come in at like 12, 1, and 2 to get up shots. And I ain't talking like just form shooting. They were actually getting sweat. They were getting work. And so when you look at the 56% that we shot, a lot of that is just from the guys really wanting to be in the gym. And that's what I noticed. And it wasn't just one guy getting shots. It was like they were coming in groups and pairs, with a partner. And they were both, kind of, that goes into what Coach talked about being in practice, about pushing each other, getting in that extra work. These guys want to be in the gym. They want to continue to get up shots. And it's not anything forced, because you know how you as a coach, you send in a text, you be like, hey, it's open if you want to. Off days, guys usually take advantage of those off days as much as they can. But honestly, these guys, they want to be in the gym. They get in and they get in work. Like, it's not playing around. They making sure that it's work and it's detailed. And Coach O does a good job of also making sure that they're not just coming in it's not anything that's beneficial to what we do as a what we want to do on an offensive standpoint. Everything's kind of geared towards what they're going to be doing in the game, in our actions, and just even if it's one-on-one stuff. So.
And I'll add, just like we said, we had an off day today, and I sent in our group me. I said, hey, gym's gonna be open at 4, from 4 to 5:30 before the girls practice. If you want to put up some shots, get some work with Coach O. And it's about 2 o'clock, and I get 4 guys that walk in. Coach, can you open the weight room? We want to lift. Like, this is off day. It's not something that's mandatory. It's not something that we're doing. So that's just the kind of guys that we have. And for anybody listening who's interested in playing basketball for us here at Voorhees, you've got to be that kind of dude. You've got to be a dude that's a gym rat, that wants to get better, that's not content, that has a chip on their shoulder because maybe you feel like you're not supposed to be at an NAIA program. But the one thing you're going to learn about this program is that we're going to run it like it's Kentucky. We're going to run it like it's Duke. We're going to run it like it's UNC, from a practice plan to a scout to how we prepare for every game to how we love on our guys. All that's going to go down here at Voorhees.
Really exciting, and you could definitely see it on the floor last night. The energy, the way guys went after it, competed. Now, Coach, we texted about the game last night, back and forth, and I gotta say, you surprised me a little bit. I feel like I've been watching you coach for so long that I knew what I expected to see in certain areas, but you surprised me with some things that you were doing on the defensive end. I said, "Now, hey, man, I hadn't seen that from Coach before." I'll ask some things of Coach Williams. Coach, you coached against Coach Huff. You've known him for a long time, but were there any things that were taking place that maybe you didn't expect or that surprised you even?
How efficient he is. So, I work for Coach Mack. Coach Mack is detailed. Huff and Mack are like they're at that same level of like just the attention to every little minute thing that happens. And being a former head coach, on game days, like my role as an assistant coach is to kind of fill in and you kind of ask questions to make sure he got such and such. He has it, right? So you find yourself kind of just making sure that you're paying attention to the things that he may or may not see, but he sees it. So that didn't surprise me, but just the high level. And then so when you talk about the Bill Selfs, the Coach K's, the Krzyzewskis, like I think Huff is up there with that as far as the detail level, paying attention to the particulars. And then the other thing was the press. I've been watching, coached against. I didn't expect the guys to take to the press like that. Now, Coach Mitchell was a defensive minded guy, so some of the principles were already established here. But like yesterday was a little different. Like the guys were flying around and covering for each other. That's what you see with 3-year seniors. That's what you see with guys who've been in the program for 2 and 3 years. But so whatever he's been teaching in practice, they've taken to that and then added what they have to it. So those two things probably I would have to say are the things that kind of got me. Like, hey, this is the real deal. Like, this is big time. Like, I got to elevate my mental level. Elevate my basketball senses. Even more in that standpoint.
I agree, Coach Williams, and you called out one of the things that I immediately noticed was the press and the pressure defense. That Coach Huff teams were not good or solid defensively. They just looked a lot different than what you saw last night from an attacking standpoint. Coach, you really let those guys get after it last night. It felt like last night you were trying to establish an identity. Is that something that people can expect to see moving forward? Was that the game plan last night?
It's definitely something that they can expect. We talked about every practice. We want to dictate to other teams. And so many times people talk about that and they talk about it offensively. And yes, we want to play with a pace. We want to push the ball up the floor. But we want to dictate what teams can do with our pressure. and that's getting up in guys. In college basketball, you don't have a 5 seconds, but you can dictate when they're taking their shots, what kind of shots they're getting by your pressure, that they're now creating late clock situations. We only got 1 10-second call last night off our press, but you could tell they couldn't run an offense because of it. And if we're keeping them from running their offense, then that puts us in a great situation. And so every time you take a job, you've got to try to put yourself in the best situation, your team, and what you can do very well. And one of the things that I took, just like Coach Williams said, is that Coach Derek Mitchell did a great job defensively with these guys. And that was part of their DNA. I wasn't going to change that. I think a lot of times we try to come in and it's got to be my way. I want to put my stamp on the program. Well, how about we take that stamp that's already been here and we use that and utilize it? And I think that's exactly what we did, in addition to how we want to recruit and the guys we want to bring in. We want to bring in great young men. So when you bring in great young men, number one, forget about all the attributes they may have, then they can buy into whatever you're trying to do. They can communicate with guys who already been here. But then when you talk about the length, athleticism that we want to have and the basketball IQ, then they fit right in. So the 7 days, it would be surprised. I think most people would be surprised if they watched that game defensively, that we had only been practicing for 7 days. Or excuse me, let me take that back, 7 practices. Because it was, 1 2-a-day, and then the rest single practice. So we had 7 practices, not including the shoot around before the game.
I definitely would not be able to guess that. And I think that was part of my surprise, right? Like, knowing that you guys had a limited amount of practices, the switching, the covering for each other, the rotations on the backside, the finishing possessions with rebounds cleanly, good outlets. Like, I wouldn't, something fundamentally I expected not to look right, because you hadn't been able to practice with these guys or really establish a lot of the things that you wanted to get done in practice. But it made me hopeful, because wow, if after 7 practices these guys can get the concepts, can tackle this many concepts at once, man, what is this team going to look like in February? What will they look like going into the tournament? Like, the sky's the limit for this team. Did you walk away feeling that way?
I mean, I did. It's funny because I asked James after him watching our shoot around, and then again after our game, I said, you were at a different place, and you guys started practicing in November or October. I said, tell me what you see with us with just 7 practices in. And he talked just about the things that you talked about of how we were able to fly around, how we were rotating and taking and having each other's back and playing for one another. And the funny thing about it is that, we were down guys last night. We had some guys banged up that we wanted to make sure they were fully healthy before they got out on the floor. So we had 8 guys, and before the game, Coach O, Coach Williams, and I said, man, do we want to press tonight? And they were kind of like, Coach, we see what we can do. And I'll have Coach Williams break this down, because it was a great piece of information he gave me on how you break down the game. He said, man, you break it down and let's see what happens. They're going to be playing off adrenaline at first, and then let's see how it goes. And so we came out with only 8 guys, 2 freshmen at that, who had never played a college basketball game. And we were able to rotate and do some things defensively that were really good. We had our moments where you could tell we got a little winded, and maybe we didn't sit down on D, maybe we didn't close off the paint or finish it with a rebound. But as a whole, we were really good defensively. As a coach, you're always going to say some things that you got to improve upon. We can't reach as much. We can't have those lapses on defense where we don't communicate. And there's some things offensively we'll talk about later that we got to improve upon. But defensively as a whole, I think myself and the staff were really excited. We were really happy about what we were able to accomplish last night. But I want Coach Williams to talk about that breakdown of a game and how he sees it, so everybody can kind of understand that.
Yeah. So as we were talking yesterday, and he was pondering, I went into the locker room. So before I answered that question, I went into the locker room, And I got a feel for the guys. You know, they were excited to be able to be back on the floor. And so with any type of game, you always got to account for the adrenaline of the kids. So like a rivalry game, you know how those first few minutes, you guys are feeling each other out. This was kind of in that same situation. I said, we're probably going to look good for the first 9 minutes. And if you track the game, we got a little sloppy there after about the 11-minute mark into that first half. So as I watch games, I tell myself I want to watch it in increments. So we got a 40-minute college game. You want to allow for your players to make mistakes. You want to allow for teams to go on runs because basketball is a game of runs and momentum, especially with no crowd. So I told Coach, you know, we want to look at 8-minute segments. And I told the guys, if you can dominate a game for 8 minutes at a time in both halves, you got 2 8-minute segments. That's 16 minutes. That leaves 4 minutes for you to have your mistakes. That leaves 4 minutes, you know, of a team making a run. And then you got to stop that. You got to clamp that down and go on another 8-minute run. Same thing in the second half. So that's 32 minutes of solid, consistent basketball. That allows the other team only 8 minutes of solid, consistent basketball. More times than not, if you can break that game down in that segments, you're going to come out with a victory or at least a shot at the end of the game to give you guys a chance to win. So, and if you look at our game, it happened. You know, we had the first 4 minutes of the second half. Defensively, Coach called a timeout and got on them. We put the clamps back down, went on another spurt, you know. And so that, you know, you gotta, I think nowadays with the attention span and being tired and the numbers, especially with COVID, you gotta allow your guys room for mistakes and rooms for teams to make runs. But then you also, that's what timeouts are for. And also part of that is you get media timeouts in college, which was a transition for me to where you don't have to necessarily burn all your 5. You can use your media timeouts to stop runs or to make sure you give instruction to your guys at certain situations. So that was just a little kind of formula concept that we actually got to see last night.
Coaches, and I'll open this question up to both of you guys. You guys have a mix of kids on this team, returning players who have college experience, transfers from other levels that also have some experience, and then, like you said, some freshmen, some high school kids. 3 different levels of kids or multiple different levels of kids all on the same team that you're trying to teach and make sure that they're prepared to play. Are you noticing anything different about how guys are absorbing that information? Are you getting that type of leadership from your returning players and your older players to the young guys, or are the young guys really just taking things and running with it? What are you guys seeing from that standpoint?
It's a combination of it all. I mean, we've got 2 guys who are returners, a junior and a senior. 21, Taiwan Bowie, and number 2, Staten Levine, who've been around. Those guys have taken that leadership horn and run with it. I mean, whether it's how they compete, how they practice, but how they also make sure people understand what it's going to take to win. You know, you're talking about guys that have been on the team that went 24-6 2 years ago and won the conference. Talking about the guys that have been on the team that won 19 games last year that came up short in the conference tournament, that they don't want that to happen again. You know, even last night when we had some lulls or even at halftime or even at the end of the game, you get Taiwan Bowie saying, yo, guys, yes, we played South Carolina Faith A&M, but we got to understand every game is to be playing the best team that we're going to play down the stretch. So you got to utilize every minute of that. But then you got guys like, you know, Joel Davis, who first goes to Coach O right after the game or last night in the dorms. Coach, tell me what I did wrong. And before Coach can answer, I know my defense has to be better. Or he texts me last night, Coach, tell me what you saw so I can get better. Or you see the maturation of a kid like number 10, Mikael Murray, from this first day of when he had practice with us to where his last practice to where he played in the game, totally different. Totally. And on those guys helping him through that process. Like, you've got to get stronger. You got to do this. You got to finish like this. But helping them through that process, understanding that we're going to need everybody. when they came in and do some workouts today and they came in the weight room, the consistent, we had Malik Wood, who's one of our older guys. We had Joel Davis, who's a transfer in. We had Ezekiel Williamson Bay, who's a freshman. Just giving those three, they came in together to go lift weights, right? And they said, Coach, we are so deep. That's so good. We're so deep. Like, it can be anybody's night. And if you get guys to understand that, then man, it can be a special season.
And I'll add, when you press, as a freshman, you come into a pressure, like coming into press, it eases you a little bit. One of the worst things a coach could do is kind of sub you into the game, and it's half court defense, and it's on your team side, so the coach can watch every rotation, and every time if you don't call out a screen or you don't call out coverage or something like that. When you come in and press, and the first you go in and you're a guard and you're going to the far end of the court, and all you have to do is like not necessarily know if you got a trap or rotate. It eases you in. And I think for us, the coach, and one of the kids that I was thinking about was Zeke. Zeke was an energy booster in that second half, and even the first half. He came in, he was flying around. And so when you just flying around and you're playing off instinct and concepts, reading your keys, it's a lot easier. It's very similar to like a linebacker that just flies downhill and he's flying into the gaps. And all he's doing is finding the gap and finding the running back, and he's not trying to think. You're going to make mistakes in those kind of situations. So that helps. That's going to help our freshmen a whole lot as well. And then, of course, like you said, the leadership. The one thing that I can say is Bowie and Stat are vocal. They're vocal. You don't have to tell them to talk. And a lot of times you kind of got to tell your leaders, hey, I need you to be a little more vocal. Those guys communicate and they talk. And that's one of the things I learned from that practice. Like, they're not going to – Coach Huff don't have to do a lot of motivating to get them to respond or to stay focused. Like his captains, his guys were stepping up. They're very vocal. And the guys listen. And that's rare. And to go back a little bit, you asked about in 7 practices, how can they look like that on the floor? And I think it goes back to culture. I told Coach Huff this. It goes back to culture, and the guys really do want to be around each other. Like that helps. Like that helped out a whole lot. Like they really like each other. You will, if you come to the gym and see them, you'll see. We talked about this today in our group. You see a lot of touching. Like they hang around each other, and you see a lot of talking. They do a lot of that. And when you have groups that do that organically, it's a lot easier to coach. But more importantly, you don't have to worry about the little small stuff when you go to sleep at night.
Good stuff. I'm going to put this up here. We'll look at our game recap. South Carolina Faith came in and ran into a buzzsaw, 101-49. You guys break the century mark in the first scrimmage. 5 players in double figures. We talked about the defense. 31 turnovers is huge, and in the highlights, trust me and believe, I captured the 1 10-second call that we got, and just some guys kind of dogging the ball that I put those in some of the highlight plays that we'll show a little bit later. But 56% shooting, and then 37% from 3. Not bad for some guys that up until now, I won't say sitting on the couch, but haven't been able to play, right? To 56% from the field and 37% from 3. Those are high numbers for guys that aren't necessarily even in a rhythm yet.
It's I think it's a testament to, like we said, them wanting to get in the gym, get the extra shooting in. But one of the big things we do, we shoot throughout our practice. And then you talk about the guys that you want to recruit. So the guys that we tried to bring in, or that we did bring in, making sure that they can make shots. And you look at that 56% shooting overall, and James will tell you, we missed too many layups. Like, we didn't finish some stuff that we should have finished last night. But if you look at how we were able to move the ball to get the 5 guys in double figures, to shoot 56%, we didn't have a whole ton of bad shots. You know, a lot of times you're watching, especially with not having as many practices, and it's not just goes for us at Voorhees. If you watch college basketball, period, because you get some teams that get shut down for 10 to 14 days, or they didn't have as much practice time, you get a lot of bad shots sometimes. And we didn't get that last night. You know, part of the thing that we were able to do, we got 73 shots up last night. That talks about the pace that we were able to play. And some of that came from how we were able to create turnovers, but that continues on the pace that we were able to play. But if we make some of those layups, and Dre, you and I were kind of talking before we started the podcast, even some of the threes we missed looked like they were going in. Like they were good shots. They were good looking shots. We kind of had a scale, or I do, of a 1 to 5, 1 being the worst shot you could take. Nobody else touched the ball. You just dribbled and you shot a long contested jump shot. I think by watching my film, by breaking down the film today, we probably only had like 2 of those, if that. You know, everything else, even on our misses, like I said, they were good shots. But it's a testament to what we do in our free time and what we do in practice, I think.
You're definitely going to see some guys when we show these highlights just kind of swinging the ball. You see the ball going from wing, top wing, like people flying around, floating through. Like, it's tough. Well, it looked like they were falling in from everywhere, and then you get the bigs kind of stepping out, hitting 15-footers, 18-footers. Like it made it look like a tough cover.
That's what we want. You know, we want to be, you know, versatile. We want to leverage our uniqueness, as I always say, of having bigs that can step out and shoot, of having guys that can be multifaceted, you know, having 4 guys that can bring the ball up the floor. I think all that kind of stuff goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do. And it's funny because as a coach, I'm looking at stuff that we can get better all the time. And like I told you, like I thought we got to get way better execution-wise, offensively. And yet, you look at numbers-wise, the numbers say something totally different. But execution-wise, I think we've got to be better. And it's like I told one of our bigs last night as we were leaving the locker room. I told Big, we call him Big Hurt, number 12, Big Willie Ferguson. I said, Willie, that's on me. We've got to get you some more touches because you were working your tail off down there to get post up, you know, to get great looks down low that we didn't feed you the ball when we should have. And it was funny because I said there was something that we had in our playbook that could have got him the ball more, but you don't want to show your hand all the time, if that makes sense. Game, you know, getting late, you just hold it off because scouting is a world right now, and I know my guy Alex Ireland is probably pouring through this scrimmage film already to get ready for it. So
we'll definitely talk about that matchup, upcoming matchup as well. I want to just show a few highlights. Hopefully, I got this film loaded up correctly. Let's take a look at some of the plays, mainly from the first half, but some of the plays in last night's game.
As we play 2 halves here in the men's game. Williams showed the biggest improvement from all the practices, as with only a second remaining on the shot clock, and a 3-pointer is good, and there's a steal and a 3-pointer up. The Tigers on top as we're under the 18-minute mark of the first half. Bowie gives it off. Here's Levine for 3. Here come Voorhees. Out of the court for 3. Hector Rosario, number 32. And a 3-pointer back the other way. Thought about a 3. Now gets it off. Levine from the free throw line is good there by Levine. Here's Blue from just inside the free throw line. And Jordan Lee Ferguson also checking back into the ball game, number 12. Oh, a nice path to the basket. Counted and 1. Hector out of Orlando, Florida. And picking up his dribble in the backcourt is DeAndre Johnson. And we'll have a 10-second violation. If it's a different name, then hey.
What I saw, I wanted to start some of those clips. Just Tyron Bowie just dogging the ball. Just dogging the ball, forcing turnovers. He did that a lot last night. I saw really good ball movement, spacing, screening, the pace. Some of those things are more so what we knew would be coming. But how do you get guys, coach, to kind of buy into playing that style of basketball? They may have been playing a little bit differently, whether last year on this team or in the places where they've been previous.
I just think it's all about what you're emphasizing and how you practice. I mean, we go from drill to drill, whatever it is. That there's no, they may get I give them a couple of media timeouts, so to speak, just to kind of pace themselves or how it may be in a college game, but there are no breaks. So they pace them. They go with the pace that we're trying to do. A normal passing drill has a pace. Everything's competitive. We've got those weighted jump ropes that we talk about. So when you lose that drill, you're going over for 30 seconds. And you're jumping rope with that weighted jump rope. And nobody our guys don't like to lose. So they're getting after it, and then they know they got to go over there and get it. I think all that comes to play, and you're trying to teach them what you're trying to get out of it. When you're running through your offense, you're telling them all the options that are available for them. You realize that everything that you're doing in your practice has to somehow translate to what you're trying to do on the floor. Like, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to say I'm the greatest coach ever, but or anywhere close, to be honest with you, but there can't be just drills just to do a drill. Like, that's a nice drill I got because Coach K did it, or that's a nice drill I got because Bill Self did it. It's got to be a drill that translates on what you're trying to do within your offense or within your defense. So how does that work? You're able to take things as a head coach. I've been out recruiting for 2 months when my guys weren't on campus, and there were a couple of drills I picked up from guys like Darren Douglas at Grovetown or even Greg Moultrie at South Cobb that have really helped in what we were trying to do defensively and offensively into our thing. So there are little things like that help us get to where we were last night. And there are going to be things that we're going to continue to do that's going to help us get better.
100%. I look at this team and the makeup of it. We look at Tyron Bowie, a weapon, right? Doing what you want your point guard to do, dogging the ball, making shots, talking. Levine, a long, athletic, rangy player, making shots, finishing on the inside, finishing outside. Jordan Blue, do you give a game ball, coach? And who the heck do you guys give a game ball to after a game like that?
Oh man, that's
everybody
tough.
Played really well.
Yeah, it's tough when you've got guys. A lot of guys that play so well. I don't think you give one. I think you praise the fact of how they play together as a unit.
Sure.
Not to take away from what they do individually, because that's important as well. But you praise them as a unit because, as I told them, we talked about our keys before the game. I told them it's next man up. To only have 8 guys to be able to go out there and play, somebody's got to step up. And if you watch that film, these are just notes I had from the game right there, part of them that you're just writing down. And they're not all bad. There's a lot of good stuff that's on there. But you're looking at a kid like Mikael Murray, a freshman, and you're watching his rotations on the backside of that press and how he rotates, but doesn't stop at the rotation, but he closes out and contests every jump shot they took and then turn and rebound. It's little things like that matter that you want to praise right there. And, there are going to be times when somebody really takes over a game. We've got a lot of guys that can really take over a game. I felt Tyron Bowie and Staten Levine controlled the first half. Then I felt Jordan Blue and Hector Rosario controlled the second half. Mm-hmm. And you had pieces of other players that went along, like Ezekiel and Mikael and Joel, that went along with it. But truth be told, nobody talks about the dirty work that Willie Ferguson did down in the post, just rebounding and doing little things, not complaining. Man, coach, I only got 3 looks last night. That's the only shots I took. Didn't worry about that. Just did his job. was excited and happy. And he's a lunch pail kind of guy. He's been like that for every day we've been here.
I didn't count rebounds for him, Huff, but it felt like plus 12.
It wasn't plus 12, but he was doggone close. I mean, when you talk about his minutes, he ended up with 7. But you had, Jordan Blue with 9 rebounds, and Staten Levine with 7, and Willie with 7, and Hector Rosario with 9, and Mikael Murray with 4. So you had different guys getting on the glass, and I still felt we could have rebounded better, to be honest with you. There were some times, we let some rebounds get away. We tipped some out that I said, we got to go get with 2 hands. Don't tip it out. And I think we're going to be better. There's some guys that weren't dressed that even help us even more. Bryce Williams is a game changer for us. A 6'5", athletic 4-man that gives us somebody else that we can play down in the post. When Julius from Philadelphia gets here, that's another 6'6" body that we'll have. But we've got wings and guards that want to go down there and get rebounds, as you can see.
Coach Williams, I'll toss this one to you. Having spent just a short amount of time with the team, were there any highlights to you from the game of oh wow, yeah, I saw this during shoot around, or oh wow, no, I didn't see that from this kid during shoot around?
I want you to say exactly what you told me, Coach Williams, near the end of the game. Make sure you say that one.
Okay, shooting. The guys make shots. Huff and I talked about, our conversations just, as he was preparing the team and just, the first couple of practices or whatever. The guys make shots. 37% from 3 is not it's good, but just the ability, like he said, the form was clean, the mechanics were clean. And shooting's one of those inexact sciences where you can do everything right and it still rim out. Like, it's the degree that you can do with your follow through and it doesn't go in. But the guys gave the ball a chance to go in every time it went up. But probably because some of the guys I seen in high school, being around Georgia high school basketball, Hector surprised the heck out of me. And I hadn't seen him since Duluth. But when you look at him on the floor, when they put on that uniform, he's bigger, he's grown. And just his ability, he's so shifty. I was talking with Coach O. He's quick with the ball. Like, you blink, he's gonna go by you. And it's not a lot of wasted motion, with his handle. And I think he finished with 21. But he was that guard that they were guarding us kind of funny towards the end, where the guy was pushing up on him. Hector got in front of him, and the guy just escorted him to the basket, and he was going to finish, at the rim. And so it was watching him control, even when coach was calling some of the actions, some of the plays, he was in control. And that not necessarily surprised me, but just to see his growth from when he was in 10th grade at Duluth and watching him at Duluth grow, and then to see him now, the benefit that I have is I've gotten a chance to see a lot of kids grow, especially from the state of Georgia. And to watch him at this particular level in his old coach's system, like, he really, really is going to be, I think, very, very good once he grows some more physically, like the shoulders and, maybe get stronger in the arm area, a little more hip, get a little more strength in his hip flexor, things like that. Like, it's going to be very hard to stay in front of him, and it's going to be very hard to body him. And that's encouraging for a college kid at this level. And then Zeke's defense. You talk about him and Bowie, like they and Jordan Blue, like you got your guards that can put pressure on the basketball like that. It's gonna be hard for you to be dictating as a coach your sets, trying to get actions. You're gonna be 10, 9, 8, 7 in your shot clock trying to get something, because those dudes just they turn you. Your shoulders are always constantly like this, so you're not in your shooting motions. Like, that's special, especially in the college game, because there is no 5-second call. The longer I can get you in your shot clock, it's gonna be a long night.
You guys were able to do that pretty consistently last night, of have those guys late in the shot clock. turning those guys multiple times, dogging the ball, not just kind of guarding the yard and keeping the guy in front of you, but like pressuring and making it really tough. You guys were able to do that quite a bit last night. I'm going to put up the schedule here, what we're looking at moving forward. And we see the 19th. Again, it just doesn't get any easier. The 19th. An away game at that at Dalton State. Coach, let's start to talk about that. What are your expectations for the team, and maybe just a couple of goals you want to get done for that game?
Number one is going to be tough. And you're talking about a team that's coming off a 30-win season that was going to the NAIA tournament, before everything got shut down. They have a history of success, especially since when Tony Eagle got there and now Coach Alex Ireland. It's special when you talk about two friends getting together for competition. Like I told somebody will be buying a beverage after the game for somebody else because we both were on that staff together at Alcorn State. But it's going to be a battle for us. We're going to have to rebound better. We're going to have to execute on the offensive end better. We can't have those lapses that we had at different points yesterday in the game. And we're hopeful that because we'll get more bodies back, we won't have those lapses. And so we just got to, we got to get back to it, and we got to grind. And like Coach Williams said, he's preparing this scout. We've got some, they played more games than us, so we've got some film to really look at on them and see how we can dissect them. But they've done a good job. They've got some players that we've got to really contain and do our job when we go up there. And it's the first time we're going on the road this year. So it's going to be a little bit different. We haven't discussed yet if they're going to have fans or not. I think they've been letting a few fans in up there a little bit. So actually having an away crowd, no matter how small, is going to be different, because last night was different. No fans, hearing everything that's going on. We were talking on our call today because we kind of got together as a team just to talk. And how do you pump yourself up when there's no fans in the gym? Everybody likes when they walk into that gym and it's packed out, but when there are no fans, it makes it difficult. And I mean, we've talked about that. It's been hard for some of these college teams so far this year to get up for games.
Yeah.
And, I'm just excited, man. Excited about how we're going to perform for our first away test. We call it road kill, so that's our job. Is that we want to go get the first road kill of the year.
For sure. And that's a tough place to go and try to get one.
It is, man.
Very tough place. I want to make sure that all the Voorhees faithful know that the Love of the Game podcast will be in the building to watch your Voorhees Tigers go against Dalton State. At least I will, being that Dalton is not that far for me, so maybe a little farther for the rest of the game crew. But I'll definitely be there to watch that matchup. Trying to get that first road win. I'll put the schedule back up here. That game will happen on the 19th, which is a Tuesday, and then you'll turn around and come back home on the 21st, that Thursday, against a tough Edward Waters group,
yep.
and have that home game at 8. That will be the first official, right? Because this game was the past game against SC Faith was a scrimmage.
Correct.
This will be the first official home game of the season, and you'll have a chance to get it done against Edward Waters. Have you guys been able to get into scouting some of these teams? How has it been trying to get tape of these teams during COVID? I imagine that's been a more of a challenge this year than it would be normally, right?
It would. Blessed that Coach Williams is on our staff. He's gotten to see some of these guys a little bit already. So the best benefit, I guess it works both ways. We haven't played but one game, so it's not a lot of tape on us. You know, like Dalton has already played like 7. Edward Waters kind of played 7. Talladega's played a lot. Like Talladega's ranked number 17 in the nation. So we've got some challenges that are coming up that's really going to test us as we finish out the month of January. And not only those challenges about who we're playing, but how quickly we're playing. You know, you play Dalton on the 19th, then you turn around on the 21st, then you turn around on the 23rd, then you turn around on the 25th, then you turn around on the 27th. So this is where our depth and how we talked about want to get these guys healthy to make sure we've got all our horses to go can really help us, I think.
And yeah, I've been able to Edward Waters and Talladega. I've done a scout on them already, actually, because they were in the conference that I was just in. Talladega's playing very, very well. They play as a unit. We look like them. So there's a couple teams where we mirror, like we're going to be playing against our mirror images. So it really doesn't come down to X and O's. It comes down to execution, which is what Coach said we got to get better at, right? So if we can execute and mentally, to play, to travel, come home, play, travel, or stay at home, come home, play, like it's going to be a mental test for these guys for these next 2 months to be able to focus and lock in without the sharpness of a practice that coach conducts. So those first 7 practices actually are way more important than what Coach Huff knows, because without being able to get those consecutively, because now as teams get into their schedule with the conferences, they're not practicing as much. You spending more time resting, you spending more time trying to keep guys healthy than you are necessarily having these 2-hour practices. And so for us to have what we had those first 7 practices, and then now to go another 6, another 5-6 days of just pure work, it actually helps us out a little bit as we go into these situations, because these other teams are playing. They're putting film and putting tape out there, but there's not that much time in between these games that they're playing, all because of COVID. So it really is how you capitalize and how you manage, time, injuries, and things of that nature for this particular stretch that we're about to go on, into February. So, and then we don't get to see our conference. Do we play anybody from our conference though?
Later, when we go to Florida National, that's this year is different. We just don't. It's just different, man. And like I said, it's a season of adaptability and flexibility, as Coach said. And you got to realize there's some guys on our schedule, some teams that we're playing. They're playing in bubbles right now where they got to play 4 days straight. Like, yes, that's good if you're talking about preparing you what could happen if you get to the national tournament for the NAIA, because you got to play back-to-back. But they're not just doing it one time. They're doing it like 2 times, sometimes 3. And that can wear on you if you're not deep. What COVID has done, not only about your conditioning, but it hasn't, like for us, and I'm just being transparent because I always am, we didn't have any tryouts. We didn't have any walk-on tryouts to get extra bodies on campus that you can have people that you can run in practice. So if you go down and look at some box scores, especially from some NAIA programs, and you're saying 8 guys, not because they have injuries, but you're saying 8 guys because they may have only had 10, and maybe one's injured and one's ineligible now because of first semester or what happened, or maybe they're still waiting on some eligibility on a kid that maybe has transferred in. And the one thing about NAIA, and I'm keeping it 100, is that you could see a team right now this week, and James knows this, and next week they can be added one of those kids that's in that transfer portal that's still growing every day.
Wow. Yeah, very true. We talk about the depth of your team, and when I look at your schedule, we're gonna need every man up because when you talk about this road stretch of Talladega on the 23rd, Edward Waters on the 25th, Allen on the 27th, Carolina on February 3rd, Denmark Tech, like these are all games on the road, though Denmark will be close to home at least. That's a big test for a team that's coming together. Coach, as we close, how do you plan to keep those guys, as Coach Williams mentioned, in the proper mental state to be able to tackle a task like that?
It's truth and trust, man. Meaning we as a coaching staff are going to be truthful with them and whatever it is, transparent, to make sure they can trust us, that we've got their best interests at heart as a team, as an individual. So it comes down to, my first practice plan had us practicing a day. But after having only 8 guys and playing a game that started at 8 o'clock, you're giving them a day off. So you've got to trust that truth and trust has to come into play. And you've got to maximize your time when you are in the gym practicing, whether it's an hour, whether it's 2 hours, whatever that time may be, you've got to maximize it. And you've got to utilize all the assets that you have. One of our guys went to the track coach, and obviously track does a lot of stuff with legs. And they've got the 2 things that you put on your legs that I don't even know what those things do, but he utilized that the other day. So you got to utilize all your resources right now to make sure we try to keep guys healthy, keep guys ready to go, keep us fresh, mentally fresh and prepared every day. And I think that starts in practice, man. Bringing that energy as a staff in practice, making sure they're bringing it, making sure we're competitive and keeping it going. Because beyond that, they're still student athletes, so they still got to go to class. Even though it's online right now, they still got to go to class. So,
for sure. Well, we're going to be looking forward to tracking the progress as we go. I don't want to get too far ahead of thinking games ahead, because we got the matchup with Dalton State coming up, and one game at a time, one step at a time. We definitely want to try and go get that one. Coach Ireland, no offense, I still love you. But we're trying to get a win when we come into Dalton on the 19th. As we close, I'll leave it to any closing statements for either of you coaches, and we can close our show.
I'll go first. I appreciate the He's and our fan base. If you didn't watch the game last night, you can still go back on YouTube and watch it. But as you're watching it, just the fact that everybody was excited that we were playing,
yes,
and got a chance to see us play. And just thank you for those people that tuned in, those people that follow us. Don't be a stranger. I know you can't come to the games right now per se, but we want to make sure that you understand that you're always invited. You're always a part of this family. So our doors are always open anytime that we play. And wherever we go, that's away from our home base. If you ever want to help us out and say, hey, at the alumni base in that town, we're going to do something for you, whether it's even just a small, want to shake the kids' hands as they get off the bus, we're there for it. So appreciate you, all of you.
Absolutely. Atlanta alumni, here's your chance. Make noise. We got a chance. Atlanta alumni. Coach Williams, I'll toss it over to you for anything in closing before we head out.
I feel just the love, like you could feel. I felt it when I got on campus. Like you could just feel how excited they are about Voorhees basketball, and that's an amazing feeling. So, and like I told everybody, my job is to make us 1% better every day, and that starts with me. So, when this call ends, I'm about to dig into Dog State. So, that's the goal.
Absolutely. Coach Huff, we appreciate the time. Coach Williams, appreciate having you on as well, being able to introduce you to everyone. Great job, fellas, on last night. A big win in the scrimmage game against SC Faith. And let's get it done against Dalton State, fellas. I'll be there. We'll be ready to go, ready to see it, and ready to cheer on the Tigers.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Dre.
That's our show. This is Voorhees Tiger Vision, and we're signing off.